give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire.
How you doing, folks? Welcome back to World of Tanks with Scout. Today we are finally going to be taking a look at the M103 American Tier 9 heavy tank. This is the review I've been promising you guys for a while. It's actually about the third or fourth take of it. I had some problems with my microphone, which is why it took me a while to get this to you, but hopefully they've been resolved now. What we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at the stats on the M103, compare it and contrast it with the other Tier 9 tanks, give you a more detailed breakdown of the armor, which I think is a big part of the vehicle, and then I'm going to show you some gameplay, which hopefully illustrates all the points that I'm going to make to you today about the M103. Now, the stats I'm going to go through as quickly as I can, but if stats aren't your thing, if you're not really interested, or if you're already familiar with the M103, feel free to go ahead and click the annotation on the screen now, and it will take you straight to the gameplay, and you can get on with watching some pretty good action in the M103. If you're interested in statistics, if that scratches your itch, or if you want to know more about the tank, please stick with me, and I'll go ahead and break it all down for you here in the next few minutes. So looking at the M103, the first thing that we want to talk about is hit points. 1850, not too bad. It's 50 more than the IS-8, but lower than most of the other Tier 9s, but you're talking about a difference of, what, maybe 70 hit points, so not that big of a deal to me. In terms of weight, the M103 weighs in at 57.49 tons, where the way I've got it equipped, max weight is 62.5. Light for a Tier 9 heavy. You need to keep that in mind if you're going to try ramming, folks. In terms of engine power, we've got 860 horses on this tank, which gives it a really good horsepower to ton ratio. It means that it's fairly responsive and accelerating, gets up hills pretty quick, but you have to keep in mind that you have a top speed limit of only 34 kilometers an hour, which works against that high horsepower to ton ratio. All in all, it's still a fairly maneuverable tank, but it does have a low top speed limit. Another thing that it has to fight against is its relatively poor traverse speed in the hull, with only 28 degrees per second. I mean, just to give you an idea, the E75 even has a better hull traverse speed than that, as big as, and that's almost a 100-ton tank. So while it does accelerate well, while it does maintain its speed going up hills, it doesn't turn very fast, and that can be very frustrating. The hull and turret armor, you can see the numbers here, but I'm going to give you a closer look at that in Watt Tank Viewer. For now, 203 on the hull front, 254 on the turret front. Just know that it's not the American heavy that you're used to coming from the T29 and the T32. And again, I'll get more into that in the Watt Tank Viewer. The gun we'll come back to. It's another thing that I want to highlight. Turret traverse, 32 degrees per second is excellent. It's one of, if not the best turret traverse speeds among the Tier 9 heavy tanks. Very responsive turret, and as you're going to see later, a responsive gun. View range, 390, which is actually lower. Typically, American tanks have pretty good view range, but not this one. The 75 and the STI both have a 400-meter view range, so a little bit wonky there. And signal range at 745 meters is actually the best signal range, or tied for the best among the Tier 9 heavy tanks. So there's your quick view of the stats. Now let's go to Watt Tank Viewer and take a closer look at the armor. So here we have the M103 and Tank Inspector, and as you can see, the numbers are not quite right. The 254 millimeters of turret front armor is only this block that you can see right here directly behind the gun mantle, and that's very, very thick. It will bounce shots from all manner of tanks, but as you can see, there's more to the story than just that. Out here on the turret sheet, it's only 159 millimeters thick, which by the time you count the curved nature of the turret, the angling and whatnot, it's equivalent of 222, but your cheeks can be penetrated by Tier 9 heavy tanks and tank destroyers if they roll high. Additionally, there's a spot here at the top of your gun mantle, which is only 117 millimeters thick, effectively 182, but again, can be penetrated by Tier 9 heavies and Tier 9 tank destroyers. You got these little indentations here at the top of your turret, only 74 millimeters thick, and then the auto pin trash can, as my clanmates like to call it here at the top, which is only 102 millimeters thick, and I've regularly penetrated that with normal AP rounds from a Pershing. Additionally, your turret ring does show, if I level the tank out a little bit, right here you can see that the turret ring can be hit. It's 118 millimeters there, Now it's more rounded over here, so it actually gets thicker, but you can get hit in the turret ring and get your turret ring jammed. So the turret's kind of a mixed bag. It is very strong, but it does have very prominent weak points, at least at close range, which is something that we're going to come back to. Now, if we take a look at the hull, you'll find the same story. The 203 millimeters of armor that's described in the garage is only right here on the beak of the hull, kind of the upper glacis and a little bit of the lower glacis. And that's relatively effective. You can bounce shots off it. As you can see, it's 210 millimeter stick showing us right now, right there in the center, and then off to the sides it gets progressively stronger. And then you've got a band of 163 millimeters of armor right behind that because of the sloping, equivalently 208, and then behind that it dips to 107, equivalently about 200 millimeters, give or take. So the hull is not as weak as the T29 or the T32, but the guns have gotten a lot stronger. Having said that, you can bounce rounds off your upper glacis. I have done it. It is effective, but you don't want to rely on that if you can avoid it. But more significantly, people generally won't shoot at your upper glacis. What they will shoot as your lower glacis. As you see here, it's actually very weak. It's only 114 millimeters of armor, and you see it's effectively 200 here. But what you have to be aware of is this spot right here. You see down here on the sides next to the tracks towards the bottom, it becomes 150 millimeters thick. In some places it drops off to 149 if I move this around. Now it's a small point. You can see if you're off just a little bit, it goes back up to 180, 190, but that is incredibly weak. Additionally, there's more bad news because your ammo rack is right behind that weak spot. The ammo rack in the M103 sits right about here. So if you get penetrated in here, which is likely, it's also likely going to hit your ammo rack, which is something that you have to constantly be aware of in this tank. Now, other than that, the armor is generally not worth talking about. The sides are very weak. You can see all the gradiated zones here on the turret. It gets weaker as you go towards the back. And the side armor here is, as you can see, 60 millimeter stick. So if you get a straight side shot, not only is it going to penetrate, it's going to do full damage, and it's probably going to hit your ammo rack again if you get hit here and here. You can side scrape in this tank, but you have to be careful doing it, because you can see here, if I can position this tank properly, that's an automatic ricochet right there. But there's spots where it's 68, 70 millimeters, and then ricochet again. So you have to be very careful trying to side scrape in the M103. You can do it, and a lot of times your tracks will eat shots for you, but you have to make sure you're doing it right, because just a little bit off like that, and all of a sudden it goes from ricochet to 70 millimeters. Other than that, there's not a lot to talk about here in terms of armor. The side armor, like we said, is garbage, and of course the rear armor is garbage. So yeah, very strong turret front, but not the same way the T29 and the T32 are. So do be aware of that. Having said that, let's close tank inspector and take a look at the gun. So here we are back in the garage, and what I've done is I've pulled up for you the gun on the M103 here. Here's the M62 T2 from the Russian Tier 9 heavies. Here's the E75's gun, the 128 millimeter, and here's the 130 millimeter from the WZ 111 1-4. So you can see them all side by side for comparison. The M103 rate of fire 5.36, and that is the strength of this tank, that its rate of fire and its damage per minute. As you can see, it's got a much better rate of fire than all of these guns. In fact, the only gun with a higher rate of fire is the, I think it's the L1A1. L1A1 gun, I believe it's called, on the Conqueror. Average penetration with AP rounds, 258 millimeters of penetration. Again, it meets or exceeds every gun here except for the Conqueror's gun, which has 259 millimeters of penetration. Average damage is only 400, which is lower than these larger caliber guns. But again, you're firing almost twice as fast, which in my opinion makes up for that lack of alpha damage, and 400 is not bad. It's more than enough in my opinion to get the job done. Once in a while you'll miss the alpha damage of the 122 or the bigger 128, but typically not an issue. Your dispersion at 100 meters, accuracy 0.37 on the M103, which is more accurate than any of these guns shown. Again, the only gun that's going to beat this is the Conqueror's gun. And then where you really make your money is your aim time, 2.3 second aim time, 0.6 faster than all of the competing guns. The only gun with a faster aim time is, again, the gun on the Conqueror. I really like this gun. I've had a lot of success with it. It's not even a bad grind to get to it. The 120 previous to this is not a bad gun. I used that for a long time. But this gun really makes this tank. And in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, that is what the M103 has that the other Tier 9s don't, is damage per minute. DPM is the strength of this tank. Its armor is not bad as long as you stay at medium ranges. If you get up close, you will get picked apart. As you can see, if you can get to say 100 meters or so, here's your 77 millimeters of armor, these hatches, these little bubbles right here, and then of course the auto pin trash can up there. You can get picked apart at close range, but if you can keep the engagements out at medium range, 250 to 300 meters, and use your DPM, this is an absolute monster of a tank. It's just a joy to play. And with that, folks, I'm going to pull up a video, a replay that I've got for you guys, and I think it's going to accurately demonstrate to you all the things that we have talked about in the garage and in Tank Inspector. So let's go ahead and give that a look. So here we are in a pretty good matchup on the new Japanese map. The name of it escapes me at the moment, but yeah, you can see we're tiered very well. The teams are pretty even, and I'm thinking about going up on the south side of the map, which is right here is where I'm looking at along that road there. Use those rocks and gun depression, but you know, that's another thing I was thinking of that I didn't really cover in the garage. Gun depression is not as much a strength for you in the M103 it has been in the past, and that's not because the M103 doesn't have good gun depression. It has 8 degrees of gun depression. It's just that the other tanks have caught up. Both the E75 and the STI have 8 degrees of gun depression as well. So that's kind of an interesting thing. When you get to the M103, you may not be used to. You may be used to having more gun depression than the other folks. That's not the case, so be careful of that. But as you're going to see in this replay, that doesn't really work out quite the way that I had planned. We're moving along the road here, and that's when I noticed the Leopard prototype and the T-54 pushing the ISU 152. He's calling for help, and I'm thinking that if I bank a hard left here, I should be able to get shots down on them. Yep, there's the Leopard and the T-54. Now, do you see how sluggishly the tank turned there? That's that slow 28 degrees of hull traverse that we were talking about. But you see I was able to put a shot into, I believe it was the Leopard prototype, yep, accurately on the move, and then put another shot into that T-54 there for 440 points of damage. What you did see on that first shot, though, is how the alpha damage on this tank can be disappointing at times. It's a really low roll, only 370 points of damage on the Leopard prototype A, but he did hit him. Take a hit there from the T-32, and there again, look at this tank struggling to turn. One of the only downsides to the M103, in my opinion, is very sluggish hull traverse. Trying to get a line on the top of that T-32's turret, couldn't quite get it. Oh, and that T-32 just got pummeled for staying in one place too long. Now, I'm pretty comfortable with my spot here. I have this hill to my left. I'm thinking it should shield me from artillery, and now I've just seen that E75. I'm going to go up, put a good shot into him using third point of view. And there you see the distance that we're at. We were able to bounce a premium round for that E75 off of our turret. And now you're seeing the reload and the rate of fire advantage. We get another shot into that E75 before he can get into cover and reload. Again, though, crappy damage roll, 370. And there you see again the turret bouncing a shot from the E75, even though this is fairly close range. This is 100 meters. And then we pull up and put a good shot into it. I was aiming for the side, but I think it went into top. And there we bounce a gold round from the T-32 as well. So we bounced 3 premium rounds now in this tank. And there we're able to get the final shot on the E75. And that's the DPM that I was talking about in the garage. Bounce another premium round from that T-32. Poke his head out again. He's going to have a real bad day. But now I'm seeing this Tiger who looks like he wants a piece of us as well. Trying to get a shot at this turret. Not real sure where he's at. Now Ferdinand's thinking about it, but I don't want to shoot his upper casement. Going for the cupola on the Tiger 2 and able to plant that one in there. 437 points of damage. Now I'm waiting on this Tiger 2 to back out. I'd like to go up here and finish him off. But if you look to my right, there you see the T-95 starting to push, and the KV-5 is getting brave, so I don't want to leave them out. So I come out to try to help cover him. IS backs out of cover foolishly, and we're able to put a shot into him and secure our second kill. And now I see the Tiger 1 and the E-50 threatening cap zone. So I turn around, trying to get a shot on this tiger. Nope, drifted a little bit right, I think hit the rock. But here again, you see the DPM of the M103 coming into play. We get the round reloaded in time, able to hit the tiger. Unfortunately, it went into his tracks and did no damage. Very odd, 258 millimeters of penetration, and all we were able to do is track the tiger. And there's that low alpha damage killing us again, only 397. Average damage 400. Would have been nice to kill that tiger. We couldn't quite put him away. Tried a blind shot, but he had already moved. And now we're trading with this E50. Put a good shot into his side there, 335. Now look at the Centurion where he's at. You see me backing off. I was instantly concerned about that lower front right, kind of a quarter panel, if you will, on my tank. And that's why I'm hesitating against the Centurion. I'm desperately afraid he's going to put a shot right in the front right of my tank and damage my ammo rack. I don't have the gun depression to hit him, not without exposing the whole right side of my tank. And that's why you see me just backing off and trying to play it patiently here. Then I come down, put a shot, hope he's shooting at the STI, and bam, right there he hits my track. Reload, and there's the ammo rack. That's what I was talking about. And the second shot went straight into the ammo rack. Fortunately, we were able to put a second shot into him as well. And don't get the kill, unfortunately. The shot was just a second too late. But again, you see the low alpha damage compared to the other Tier 9 tanks. That second shot for the Centurion 7-1 only hit for 362. And actually, if you look at all the hits, the 12 hits in the top left corner, you'll see most of them are actually for under 400, below average damage. So that can be a little frustrating, but again, I think that the rate of fire really makes up for it. As you saw when we chewed up that E75 and were able to get, what, I think it was 3 shots into the tiger. Even though we were a little unlucky, got a tracking hit and the one zoomed off into the mountain to the right. I think in an E75 you'd have been lucky to get 2 shots at that tiger. So now it's only us and artillery remaining. And check out the speed of the M103 here. I'm a little late turning the camera around for you, but look, even on this flat terrain, even though my top speed is lower than the STI, because I'm able to maintain speed better, I'm able to actually stay ahead of him in this race to the cap to kill the artillery. Keeping the turret over the back here so you can get an idea. And as you see, it's not that I'm faster than the STI. If he gets a chance to build up to his top speed, he closes the distance, but he can't maintain it. The M103, I believe, has better stats in terms of soft terrain resistance and so forth, and then the horsepower per ton ratio allows me to maintain my speed going over the undulations better than the STI. So that gives you an idea of how the speed works out on the M103 with a high horsepower to ton ratio but relatively low top speed limit. And there's that M44. Put him out of our and his misery. I really hate artillery, and able to secure the kill. So let's take a look at the results screen and see how well that went. So here you have the results screen from our battle on Hidden Village. That's the name of that map. I could not think of it. Able to secure a first class mastery badge, a high caliber medal, and a Confederate medal. Bring home 47,481 credits and net 1,223 experience points. You can see we put a lot of shots into a lot of different tanks with that very high rate of fire. If we take a look at the team score, you can see that we clearly came out on top in terms of damage done with 4,906 points of damage, securing 3 kills, giving us our 1,223 base experience. The closest competing tank was our STI with 3,707 damage, although he did get 4 kills. Pretty good example, I think, of really dominating the game as a top tier heavy and using DPM as opposed to armor and alpha damage like you're used to in, say, the STI or the E75. If we take a look at the detailed report, you can see that we fired 18 shots, got 15 direct hits, of which 14 penetrated, giving us our 4,906 points of damage, 397 of which was from more than 300 meters. Received 8 hits, only 4 of which penetrated, 4 bounce, including all those premium rounds you guys saw bouncing. So again, you can bounce shots with your turrets. You just have to be careful. If you get really close, 100 meters or less, you got to worry about guys with accurate guns who know what they're doing, shooting the weak spots of your turret. But that doesn't mean that your turret's weak. Again, it's just a little different flavor than the T29 or the T32, giving us a total of 1,370 points blocked by armor. We've only spotted 2 vehicles, but we damaged 9, destroyed 3. Got credit for 906 points of assistance damage, and even got 13 base defense points somehow. Maybe those are base capture points. I don't know how I did that. I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, those are base capture points from sitting in the cap circle shooting that artillery. And of our 47,481 credits after repair and rearm, able to bring home 17,766. So that's it for my review of the M103. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you found it helpful. Really, the bottom line, I can't stress it enough. It's a very different tank than the E75, the STI, in that you have DPM as opposed to armor and alpha damage as your primary weapon. And it's also different than the T32 and the T29 before in that your gun depression isn't as dominant as it used to be. The other tanks have caught up, and your turret isn't one solid slab of armor. It's got zones that you have to be aware of. And your upper glacis, not as weak relatively as those were, but you do have a very weak point in your lower glacis, where not only do you have to worry about your armor being weak, you have to worry about your ammo rack being hit. And if you can keep all those things in mind as you're playing this tank and get yourself to positions where you can use the damage per minute to your advantage, I really think you're going to love this tank and you're going to have a good time with it. So with that, folks, I'm going to call it a wrap. Again, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it helpful, and we'll see you next time.